So you all have been asking me to review Wudijo's Flurry rapid fire combo build that he posted just a little while ago, talking about how it could potentially be the new rogue meta. And I figured, you know what, since you all are asking for it, and I myself have not been a person that typically enjoys Flurry builds. I think Flurry has been a pretty mediocre skill. I figured, awesome, maybe this will change my opinion on Flurry. I will note that this is not the perfectly optimized build. In fact, what you're seeing here is probably what you should expect if you are going to swap to the build yourself as a more casual player. If you're a little bit more hardcore, which I ended up modifying the build later on and diving into harder content, well, you're going to push further and have better experiences, just as you are with every build. But seeing as I've tested a lot of builds at this sort of non-optimized level, it gave me a good basis for comparison. Now, one thing that I thought was really genius actually was Flurry with rapid fire. It's something that I probably would have never thought of, and that's just comboing a couple different core skills together on the rogue. And mainly that's because I, kind of think of it as giving a build an identity. But in this case, Flurry's main weakness oftentimes is the single target damage potential. And running in with rapid fire in conjunction with that, well, rapid fire is a very good single target damage skill, arguably the best on the rogue in a lot of scenarios. And so comboing them together kind of shores up Flurry's weakness while also kind of shoring up rapid fire's weakness, although shadow imbuement kind of already does that. And so with this build, we're running Shadow Step, Dash, Shadow Imbuement, Rapid Fire, Puncture, and Flurry. Now, Rapid Fire with Flurry is very similar to how the Barrage playstyle works, which is sort of like a shotgun mechanic, where you're using Rapid Fire on the elites and then Flurry in clearing out the AoE for really, really nice combo potential. And we are running combo points as our specialty, which is really, really nice with just increasing our overall damage. But what's really nice about this, as you can see from this early part of the dungeon, is clearing out just packs is very easy. Very, very easy. One thing you do have to worry about with this build, though, when you're clearing out packs, is the potential for CC, as per usual, but also your AoE damage is actually not super great. And what I mean by that is it clears out trash just fine. But when it comes to like trash with maybe a champion mob or a trash with some elites, you can struggle a little bit in some scenarios. And that's kind of where rapid fire comes into play. Again, Flurry just ends up being a little weaker than I would have hoped. And you can see here me jumping into tier 59, and you might see some of the issues with this, which the first and foremost issue that I really found was the damage with Flurry. You can see here I swapped to rapid fire a lot, and the rapid fire damage is really good. You can kill elites oftentimes in 2 hits with, even punching up as I am right here with my gear. My gear is, again, not optimized to deal with a lot of this stuff. What you'll notice here is I'm actually going to get hit by a CC mechanic and then get instantly one-shot. And that is one thing that you need to consider. And one modification that I made to the build later on was, A, you don't really need Dash and Shadow Step with the build. And B, you only have the one dash with Shadow Step, and the modification that Wudijo recommends gives you that extra stun, which can be good in a lot of scenarios, but you really have to pay attention and be watching out. It's very good for speed farming, but if you're looking to push or push a little bit higher into the nightmare tiers, you might want to go with a little bit different skills, which is an easy modification to make. And you can see here, maybe spamming out flurries, because I was trying to see if Flurry could, kind of handle a big group like this. It really does pretty poor on single target damage, with even a couple of elites, despite me trying to AoE a group down. And I just swapped over to rapid firing down everyone there, and you can see rapid fire cleaned it up really quickly. So very impressed with rapid fire in this build, and actually because of this, I'm going to dive more into rapid fire and just see if I can make something a little bit more interesting, because rapid fire really impressed me just using the kind of combo points with rapid fire, which I had tried a while back, but I was not as impressed with it because my character wasn't as developed. But now I would really like to dive back into rapid fire. Flurry, once again, really not that impressive, and I think I might die here as well. I was just trying to tank it out, kind of like a Twisting Blades build, and Twisting Blades are able to do that pretty easily. Flurry, not so much, despite the fact that we have a lot of healing with it and a lot of options to hit everyone around us. Now, if you have better, pants, better armor, or chest piece rather, you can do a lot better. But honestly, I just don't feel like Flurry is worth the investment here. It does, again, deal with a lot of that trash, but you'll find that it doesn't really do as much as you'd hope. And that's where I come to sort of the modifications that I make to this build. So diving into the build just a little bit, a few things that I noticed. One, it does require a lot more investment than something like Twisting Blades to get online. So if you're trying to use this build for leveling, you're going to have a way worse experience than if you had just used something like Twisting Blades. Because early on, when I just got a few things going and I didn't have the full build put together, I didn't have all the glyphs, up to level 15 to expand the radius because I'd been using other glyphs, etc. Well, you're going to find that it's really going to struggle quite a bit. You do have to work for this build to get online. Once it does, it actually does quite well. A few of the things that I would like to mention with this one, for one, I really like siphoning strikes, and I personally would go all the way with siphoning strikes. I think rank 3 out of 3 is going to be way worth it, and in fact I would probably cut a little bit of the stutter step here for a little bit less movement speed, potentially for a little bit more healing, just because, well, when you're pushing higher to your content, you're going to want that healing just to keep you alive more likely, especially since you're basically always close. Another thing that I recommend is actually swapping over to Disciplined Shadow Step. Methodical Shadow Step is really nice for certain situations where you need CC, but Disciplined Shadow Step is going to give you that cooldown reduction where you're going to be able to recycle Shadow Step quicker. This is going to help a lot of players if you're not as good at avoiding CC, or potentially your build just isn't quite as developed and optimized where you're not one-shotting everything everywhere. You're going to want to make sure that you have the option to break a little bit of CC. Also, running with dash and shadow step is not something that a lot of people do, and mainly because dash just gives you a little bit of mobility through dungeons, right? And when you're pushing, you don't really care too much about that mobility, and so actually running something like Poison Trap can be really nice, especially running into the enhanced Poison Trap and potentially even countering Poison Trap to potentially reset your shadow imbuement. But enhanced Poison Trap gives you that guaranteed knockdown for the concussive, immediately jumping into a fight and giving you that little bit of CC for just groups when you charge in with Shadow Step. Also, with a couple of the aspects here, I personally, Penitent Greaves is amazing, okay? It is absolutely amazing, and it's hard to change it because with this, you're gonna get that chill effect and then use Frigid Finesse. This is one of my favorite things to do with a lot of the rogue builds and just builds in general, is to get that guaranteed CC off Penitent Greaves, and since you're melee, you're basically always gonna get it, and then get the chill bonus. However, if you are finding that you're getting CC too often, the Ravager's aspect on your boots can give you that second charge of Shadow Step, basically giving you permanent unstoppable, which can be very good. Outside of that, I really like a lot of the aspects that he's running. And overall, I think the build is extremely solid, very solid. This is definitely the best Flurry build that I have ever seen or I've ever played with so far. But what I would say is why? And that is to say that I would just rather fully commit to Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire with Shadow Immune is going to give you the AoE that you want anyways, and also you could just, instead of putting the points into Flurry here and like diverting your gear to get the extra ranks of Flurry, etc., fully commit to Rapid Fire, and then you could potentially bring in something like Dark Shroud with, I forgot the name of it, but the one where you lucky hit with marksman skills, you can get some free Dark Shrouds, giving you that movement speed potentially, and then play it like that Shotgun Barrage build where you're basically melee, but you're playing Rapid Fire melee, and with Shadow Imbuement, you're gonna have enough AoE damage. And you can even potentially, if you don't want to run Dark Shroud on your bar, you just want to run that aspect, you could even run in Poison Imbuement instead of something like Flurry, where now you have insane single target damage, but also really good AoE damage. That's one way to go. There may be situations where this is actually better for speed farming, and that is a consideration with this build. If I were to determine what the advantage to this build is, it's actually really good for that 70 to 100 process. I would say 50 to 70. I would 1000% for those of you trying to get a build going. Definitely try to run a leveling build like Twisting Blades, something like that, because it's going to give you a way easier time. But as you start to approach Ancestral Pieces and you start to put the skill build together, it's actually going to be a very good speed farming build because it's going to annihilate bursting, those really easy nightmare dungeons about 3 levels above you. And then when you get to those elites or bosses, you can just one-shot them with rapid fire. And that's exactly what you want to do with this build. So overall, really like it. Very much enjoyed it. Definitely my favorite Flurry build. But at the end of the day, I think this definitely is a step down from Twisting Blades and potentially even a step down from just full-on rapid fire. So those are just my thoughts on it. I'm sure if people will disagree, don't think that this is a bad build by any means. If I were to like rate it on like a tier list or something like that, and compare it to the other builds, I would say a lot of the Twisting Blades and potentially even Penetrating Shot or Rapid Fire might be like S tier, and then this is probably going to be right underneath that in the A tier category, where it's going to be very good for speed farming, but not quite as good for potentially pushing up higher. Again, when you start to optimize all the builds, all of them start to get a lot better, right? And that is a consideration, but at least from, you know, the average player, this is definitely going to be a much harder build to kind of put together and work. So thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think about this build down below and whether or not you've enjoyed it, if you've tried it. Also, let me know if you like Flurry, because I'm still not a fan. Even though this is my best experience with it, I still just don't really like the skill compared to Twisting Blades Rapid Fire. I'm a Twisting Blades nerd, guys. I'll always be. I just find the skill super fun. See you tomorrow.